This is lecture 1A, looking specifically at emerging adulthood. Now, I've already brought up this term in an earlier lecture, and you know that I've kind of questioned emerging adulthood. And so what I'm going to do in this lecture and in the next is I'm going to go ahead and treat EA, emerging adulthood. EA is my shorthand for that, according to the literature. So I'm gonna come straight out, and this is what the literature says about emerging adulthood. Okay. Now, Arnett, J.J. Arnett, in 2000, 2007, 2010, introduces the term emerging adulthood. And Arnett is from Clark University. And according to the literature, by naming this transitional period, he brought credibility to this period of development. The stage is applicable to those between the ages of 18 and 25. Now, 18 is when most youth in the U.S. graduate from high school, and 25 is the age before the literature considers that they enter into adulthood, at least adulthood as it is commonly understood. Now, individuals in this age range are supposedly no longer dependent on the preceding generation, i.e. their parents, as they were before. However, they have not yet taken on the more enduring responsibilities of adulthood. That is, career, financial independence, marriage, and parenting. Now, research on emerging adulthood, that is, most 18 to 25-year-olds, do not consider themselves to be adults. Now, Arnett actually first started writing about this back in 1997. And most of his research comes out of his own personal experience with his students. They realize that they are no longer adolescents, but they get to embrace adult roles and responsibilities. Now, studies have examined how those in this age group define adulthood. I would refer you to Arnett and his own work published in 97, 2000, 2001, and 2010. Also, I would refer you to L.J. Nelson and Berry in their work published in 2005. Now, there is agreement among emerging adults, unlike in previous eras. And this agreement is this: they no longer consider external criteria such as marriage, completion of education, and career attainment to be critical markers of adulthood. And this is different from many of us. These external markers defined us when we became an adult, or they defined me. When I graduated high school, I went into the Army. I had individuated. I had become a unique self. I understood who I was. And these markers, attaining a career and education, marriage, these were some external markers that helped me understand where I was developmentally. But emerging adulthood in the U.S. No longer uses those external factors. They turn more to internal, individualistic characteristics to define adulthood. And these include taking personal responsibility for their actions, like autonomy, making their own independent decisions, and obtaining financial independence from their parents. Now, when we're thinking about emerging adulthood, we need to also pause for a moment and consider gender. In emerging adulthood research, unlike the three periods of adolescence we've already considered, according to the research, the gender of an emerging adolescent changes. What I mean by that is this, because let me just go on. In Fivush and Buckner, 2003, and that Fivush, if you want to look this up, is Fivush. Fivush and Buckner, 2003. They present evidence that suggests that the autobiographical narratives described desired goals, plans for the future, and social relationships in such a way that there were no gender differences that marked the population. That is, in those areas, it was not gender specific as we might assume it would have been. It's pretty much the same across the genders, both male and female. College students who were away from home for the first time were surrounded by others of similar age with similar goals. And so they face the fundamental challenge of creating their own self-identity. Interestingly, this is something Erickson observed back in 1959 and 1968. That is, this period of life is rife with doubts about who one is, about their belief systems, and about how they should live their lives. They argue that as these young adults enter college, they begin to think about long-term goals, and in that sense, gender is not relevant. Gender, they suggest, may be put in the background. And so academic achievement, concern about future career and professional aspirations are paramount for both males and females, and therefore that comes to the forefront. Now, they argue in 2003 that more research is needed and needs to be devoted to non-college populations in which different life goals, such as marriage and family, may be salient at earlier ages. Others, Arnett in 2000, Nelson and Berry in 2005, and Schulman and a whole host of authors in 2005, they make similar arguments. In fact, Schulman suggests that economic pressures may expose non-college youth to different challenges leading to alternative life choices. In 2011, Arnett and Tanner addressed the issues of social class, arguing that the defining features of emerging adulthood apply primarily to those middle-class youth who attended college or a university. Such individuals typically have enough financial support from their parents, allowing them personal freedom and leisure to explore occupational options and even personal relationships. Now, I argued in earlier lectures that I have some issues with emerging adulthood because it's not considered a universal stage. Arnett has admitted in 2011 that emerging adulthood applies to middle-class students who go to college, not necessarily those who don't go to college. And Arnett and Tanner point out that the majority of those in the lower social class do not have the luxury of exploration and instead may struggle to enter into the workforce and therefore are much less likely to experience those years of 18 to 25 as optimistic opportunities and possibilities. Arnett and Tanner urge, as well as Fivush and Buckner, they urge that those in the field need to direct greater attention to what Arnett and Tanner call the forgotten half. That is, the working class young people who do not attend college or university, but go straight into the workforce after high school. And so one of my concerns about emerging adulthood is it's being perpetuated as a stage of development. But in his own work, Arnett admits that it is not a universal stage. It is only that which is experienced by a particular cohort of students. It seems to me that early, middle, and late adolescence, and I know late adolescence maybe still debate that. At least early and middle is experienced by all. Some may go through it faster than others. Most are taking a while, but those are universal stages that are experienced in North America and in growing numbers in other countries. Now, it should be noted from a research perspective that college students have been for many years largely convenience samples. And they're thought as convenience sample, and as a convenience sample, they kind of represent proxies for that age group. What I hope is that some red flags are starting to go up. Research has assumed and used middle-class students as proxies for the rest of the age group. And what I'm saying is that you can't do that. It's not appropriate. You cannot look at one group and say that this applies carte blanche across the board to others. I think this is irresponsible. However, it is also what our media has done, and it's typically what we hear. You're going to hear more about this later. Now, Arnett, in his work published 2000, 2007, 2010, focused on what he understood to be a new transitional stage of emerging adulthood. With this, one needs to question whether the large body of past psychological research that has been conducted of college students is truly representative of mature individuals who who have supposedly met the criteria for adulthood. I would also add, we got to question whether what Arnett claims to be true is representative of those less mature who have gone into the workforce and have not necessarily met the criteria for adulthood. Blessings and peace.